Hey, what's up guys, Jaeky here. So today I will just be going over my Apex settings, including my in-game settings, launch options, NVIDIA control panel settings, Autoexec, and video config. So let's get started. So let's start with my in-game settings. I'm just gonna scroll down really slowly here in case, so you guys can pause it whenever you want. The video setting is probably the most important tab here. All right, so for video settings, and by the way, you want to change this first, by the way. So yeah, all the settings I'm doing right now, if you want to copy me to get the most FPS, then you want to start with this. So for my video settings, I basically have everything on the lowest full screen native resolution, just because I don't like playing stretch. And then brightness, just 50%. Field of view, I have it on the highest. Sprint view shake, minimal. VSync disabled. Adaptive resolution, I have this off. Anti-aliasing, none. This, none. Bilinear, disabled. So basically everything on the lowest here, just like that, just to get the most FPS. So those are my in-game settings. All right, so next up is going to be my launch options. For launch options, I just have dash full screen, dash frequency 144. Basically this just depends on your monitor's refresh rate. I have a 144 Hertz panel, so I put 144, but if you have a 60 Hertz, then you can put 60. If you have 240, you can put 240. It just depends on your monitor's refresh rate. And then this is pretty important, is the plus exec autoexec.cfg. We're going to be making autoexec, so you want to make sure that this line is in your launch option, or else your autoexec won't execute. All right, as for my NVIDIA options, I actually have a dedicated video on that. I will leave a link to that video in the description below if you want to check that out. In that video, I explain the best settings for FPS and the least amount of input lag for Apex Legends, so I recommend you guys check that out. All right, now for the autoexec, basically this is how you get to the autoexec. All you have to do is go to where you installed Apex, and then once you're in this folder, you go to CFG, and then in here you want to create an autoexec. The easiest way, in my opinion, to do that is you click on this file right here, the config default, and you copy paste it, and then you rename this to autoexec. I'm just gonna name it autoexe because I already have an autoexec. And then once you've done this, you just open it and delete everything inside of here, and then you have a clean slate to enter your autoexec, and then you can just save it. So since I already have an autoexec, I'm gonna close this and just delete this. All right, so let's open this file, which is my autoexec, and first things first is going to be my mouse settings. I have M raw input 1, which basically just enables raw input, and then these right here is to make sure that mouse acceleration is disabled. This is from my CSGO config, and I'm pretty sure these are redundant, but I just like to keep it in there for insurance. And then my FPS settings, I have CL show FPS 4, which in my opinion is the cleanest one. It's the one Dizzy uses and a lot of top players, so I like it on 4. And then FPS max, I have it on 190 just because my game never really pushes 190 to begin with. And the only time it ever does is in bunker and stuff, and I really don't feel a need to push it past 190, so that's why I just keep it on 190 just to prevent throttling and stuff. This is in-game, and then this is for the menu. I'm not sure if this even like affects the game, but I took this again from my CSGO config. And then radar settings, this just makes it so that whichever direction you're facing, your radar rotates with you. So, and then these are my video settings. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory. This just gets you a little bit of an FPS boost, like these three. This reduces particles. This makes your textures, smaller, so it gives you more FPS. And then obviously this just disables ragdoll colliding. Matte screen blur is actually pretty interesting. I don't really think this gives you more FPS, maybe it does, but this is more of an aesthetic thing. So when you open up your inventory, usually the background, like the gameplay, gets blurred. And if you put this option in your autoexec, that just makes it so that there's no blur. And in my opinion, it just looks a lot cleaner, but also you can see enemies and stuff a lot easier if you're in your inventory or looting or something like that, which is why I have this in here. All right, so next up is the video config. So this should be your last step when you're doing everything. You want to make sure that you go in game first and then set all your video settings. That's why I said to do that first. and then make sure that you do this after you set your in-game settings. So you want to go, how to find the video config, you just go to your C drive, users, and then your name, saved games, respawn, Apex, local, and then in here you'll find your video config. So you just want to open this up with Notepad or Notepad++, which is what I'm using. And then everything here, everything at the top here, I kind of left default. And then right here is where I started making changes. The RLOD switch scale, I put this on 0.35, and this is basically just your model detail. 0.35 is a good balance between, you know, like very low and low. So it's a good middle ground. I feel like it makes the game still look bearable, but doesn't make the game look too ugly at the same time. And it also gives you a nice FPS boost. So I like leaving this on 0.35. One is high model texture, so that kind of gives you like a reference point. And then next up, all of this is default up until right, where is it? Here. So CSM enabled, this is shadows. And this is usually on 1. But if you disable this, it gives a really big FPS boost because obviously there's no shadows that the game has to process. So I like putting this to 0 just to get the most amount of FPS. And those are the only two things that I change in here. Everything else is just default. But these get set. Actually, no, I think I changed. What is it? Ragdoll? It's one of these ragdoll settings. So I have this on 0, this on 1. And yeah, those are the only things I changed. Everything else is default. So yeah, again, make sure you change your in-game settings before you touch this. And then after that, you want to save it, close it out, and then make sure you right click on your video config, go to properties, and you just want to make sure you make it read only. Because if you don't make it read only, the next time you launch your game and you change any video settings, all of this will get reset. So you just want to make sure it's on read only so that it doesn't get reset. And also, if you keep this on read only, if you change any settings in game, they won't stick unless you go back in here and untick read only. So just keep that in mind. And that's basically it. Those are all my Apex settings, from video config to Autoexec to launch options. And again, if you want my NVIDIA settings, the link to that video will be in the description. So that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you in the next one. Peace out. So the first thing you want to do is just right click on your desktop and click on NVIDIA control panel. And this will open up this right here, which is the NVIDIA control panel. And you want to go to adjust image settings with preview and make sure you use the advanced 3D image settings is selected, and then click take me there. From here, this will be your default tab, but you want to scroll over to program settings just so it doesn't mess with any other games that you play. And you want to select Apex Legends from this list. If you don't see Apex Legends in this list, you can click add. And then I found it here right away in this list, but if you also don't see it here, then you can browse and then just find out where you installed the game and select the exe and then just add selected program and you're good to go. So once that's selected, you want to just copy these settings that I have right here: anistrophic filtering off, anti-aliasing FXAA off, gamma correction off, anti-aliasing mode off, and setting, just leave this be because it'll be grayed out. And then transparency, you want to have this off. CUDA GPUs, click on this and make sure you select all of your GPUs if you have multiple, or just select the one if you have one. And then maximum pre-rendered frames, set this to 1 for the least amount of input lag. Multi-frame sampled AA, turn this off. OpenGL rendering GPU, select your GPU, your main one, if you have more than one. And then power management mode, maximum performance. And then this is if you have a high refresh rate monitor, you just want to select highest available to make sure you're on the highest refresh rate. Shader cache depends on whether or not you have a SSD or a hard drive. So if you have an SSD, then turn this on. If you have a hard drive, turn this off. And then this anistrophic sample, turn this on. This, just leave it on allow. Quality, high performance. Trilinear optimization, turn this on. Threaded optimization, turn this on as well. Triple buffering off. Vertical sync off. And this doesn't really matter. You can just leave it on 1. And that is pretty much it. Those are the best settings for the most amount of FPS and least amount of input lag for Apex Legends. You also want to make sure if you are trying to get the most FPS that you have your in-game settings all set to low. And then one last tip that I have is go into your Origin launcher here and then go into application settings, go to more, Origin in-game, and make sure that this is turned off. Yeah, just make sure this is turned off and you will be good to go. So that's pretty much it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you in the next one. Peace out.